Good morning and welcome to another episode of Backyard Bible. I'm Joe. Today we want to talk a little bit about my yard. So I have a lawn like everybody else does, and the goal of every gardener is to have a wonderful deep green plush yard, kind of like a carpet, soft and squishy on your feet, just all the way around, green, thick and lush. And that's a hard thing to accomplish, mostly because weeds get into your lawn. Now this year in my backyard I had a section of my grass. I'm going to show that to you. It's really pretty. I'm going to come around here. It's right down there. If you look at it, it's real soft and squishy and nice and green and lush. And I thought to myself, wow, you're pretty lucky. So it handled itself very well when it got dry, and it grew wonderfully. But in the back of my mind, I thought to myself, there's something not right here. But I ignored that and I let it go, because what's the harm in letting something green and plush grow? What's the harm in letting something go that you think may be the wrong thing, but it really isn't that bad? It's actually kind of good, felt good, looked good, so why not just let it go? And I did. Now the other kinds of weeds, or some of the weeds that you get in your lawn, I should say, one of them is crabgrass. It looks like this. It's very ugly. It's very noticeable. You'll actually see it in this part of the lawn here. And it's not pretty. It does not feel good on your feet. And it's ugly. So we see that and we know that there's a problem. That's ugly and nasty in our lawn. But sometimes there are weeds that look pretty and look comfortable. And it turns out that grass that was growing in my yard is something called sedge. Sedge looks like this. It's soft, feels good, and it's green. So you figure, hey, it looks good, it feels good, it should be okay, right? It's okay to have that. Well, it turns out sin is like that in our lives too. Some sins are very obvious. They're the sins that we all know are sins. And they exist in your life the same way that crabgrass exists in your lawn. And it will overtake your life if you let it. But it's pretty easy to identify, and we tend to go after that for the most part. I mean, some people have that in their lives a lot, but most of us try and avoid the crabgrass kinds of sins. But the sedge sins, these are the other ones, the ones that you ignore because they're not that big a deal. Everybody else is doing it, or it looks good, it feels good. What's the harm? Well, I'll tell you what the harm with sedge is. And I let it go, and it has now covered my entire yard. And during the entire summer, that was wonderful because, again, it was like a carpet. But now I'm having to deal with this. If you look very carefully at this, see these little bumpy things? Those are the seeds from the sedge. And it turns out sedge seeds dry out, become hard, and these little spiny things are stickers. And they hurt, they get into your skin, they irritate you, they're annoying, they get all over the place. One or two, not that big a deal. But when you have an entire yard full of it, it's a real problem. And it's very, very difficult to get rid of. When small sins enter our lives, it's very difficult to purge them if we don't do it right away. We just let them grow, and they spread until they fill up our entire life. So while we've avoided the big sins, hey, at least I'm not as bad as that, we still have these little sins that are a problem. Now I'm going to have to do a lot of work to get this out of my yard. I've been having to cut the yard extra low. I have to put down stuff. They're very, very difficult to get rid of. And if I don't, I'm going to have a yard filled with these stickers that are going to get stuck on me, on my dog, on my clothes. They're going to get under my skin. They're going to be like splinters. They're painful and uncomfortable. So I want to avoid that in my life, and I want to avoid those kinds of sins in my life. So how do we deal with sin? Well, with the case of weeds, we spray the weeds with a poison. We tend our yard, we cultivate things, we do stuff like that to get rid of weeds. But the weeds in our life are a little difficult. And the way we handle that is, first we have to identify it. First we have to say, yeah, I recognize that this is a sin, that this is a weed. I have to recognize that first. And once I identify that, I have to admit the fact that it's actually in my life. In this case, it's actually in my yard. And then I need to take the necessary actions to prevent it. As if I get rid of it early, it never has a chance to grow, fester, and absorb me or take over my yard. So I want you to think about that. Think about the little things in your life that are, they're wrong. In the back of your mind, there's something not right about that. Take care of those things first. That way you'll help to avoid having the stickers in your life that become irritating and annoying and difficult and make your life hard to live. So that's it for today. The first thing is identify. Secondly, purge. Thirdly, ask for redemption. Ask Jesus to forgive you. And then lastly, try not to let it happen again. That's it for Backyard Bible. We'll see you next week.